Hi, Dr. Ruth Anderson here with Enlightened World Network. I'm so pleased to be with you all today for Focus on Lightworkers. And I have a fabulous guest on today, Ona Martin. So, Ona, come on and say hello.
Oh, thank you so much for hosting me here. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's my honor. And I just want to give a little background on how we connected. The other day in meditation, Archangel Michael was suggesting that we branch out with the Enlightened World Network a little bit and dig a little deeper into some of the dragon energy and the unicorn energy, which was all pretty new to me. And it was suggested that I go to YouTube to see who is providing information in this way right now. So I looked up spiritual dragons and Ona popped up. So I reached out to her and I said, okay, this sounds kind of odd, but I would love to know a little bit more about you. And so here she is. So we're all going to learn a little bit more about Ona right now. But there is much more to her than just dragons. So we're going to get to that in just a minute. But Ona, first of all, give us a little information about the dragon piece, because that's what led us here. And then we'll dig into your background, what brought you to this point, and then where
Sure.
you're doing. So first, can you tell us about the dragon piece?
Okay, so I'm finding it interesting that you reached out to me about dragons because it's like they do seem to be coming forward a lot more over the past year and a half, in my experience at least, and really coming to the forefront. I'm hearing a lot of people connecting with dragons. So I guess it's not surprising that this is, how we connected. It is a very powerful energy. I have a couple of videos on my channel, Art of Awakening, about dragons. One is because I have a whole series of spirit animal videos that I'm doing. I was guided to create a deck and then guided to get on YouTube and start talking about the animals. So dragon was one. It's not actually in my deck. I'll probably create another deck with the mythological beings at some point, but I really was feeling dragon energy coming forward very strongly. This was a little over a year ago. And so just decided I really need to do this video. So I'm not sure if that was the one, or I've done a meditation on dragons as well. But it is just, dragons are interesting because as a mythological creature, one thing that spirit animals have really taught me is that all energies are just energy, and they can spin positive ways or negative ways. And so dragon is one of the spirit animals that can come forward in either way. And in the mythology, you have both instances. European mythology tends to focus more on the negative aspects of dragon, which is the fearsome beast, right? And that can represent parts of our ego, right? As being this kind of consuming beast, or this, the one that eats the virgins and that kind of thing, who destroys towns. But it also has a very, very positive aspect to it, which we see coming forward more in the Oriental traditions, of a very powerful and benevolent being. And that's the kind of dragon that I'm seeing. Actually, if you look at some of the extra energies that have come forward, and right now, recording this in very early June 2020, we're seeing probably that very negative aspect of dragon just rampaging, burning towns and stuff. But the positive aspect is what I think a lot of light workers are really starting to connect with. And this is a very divinely aligned kind of energy. It's powerful, and it's this energy of really coming forward. It's very protective, and there's a zillion different types of dragons. People have their own personal dragons. But typically they're going to have a lot of that fire energy, a lot of that, just the power to cut through things, and to just really kind of even just get things accomplished, get things done. So tapping into that. Also, they have this kind of very ancient and very, I feel like they're very no nonsense, but they're also very mystical. So it's a really fun energy to work with, and they can be really powerful healing allies. And I was just in session with somebody, and she had a dragon come forward, and this dragon really had both the protective role, and we were working with this entity that was like really, really, really had its hooks in there, and the dragon was able to help. I mean, we couldn't have done it without the dragon. It was very, very helpful in helping her to release this long time kind of very entanglement energy. So
Interesting.
yeah.
So, Ona, not everybody speaks about working with dragons. What has your journey been to this point that this is what you do?
Yeah, and I never would have guessed as a child that I would end up doing this. I'm an artist. I always have been, and that's what, as a child, I always thought, okay, I'm just going to be an artist, and I still am. I mean, it's a very integral part of the work that I do. But I think I used to draw dragons, and the art is a lot of the archetypes that I work with, they'll come through in the art. And so I was working with archetypes and with these, you know, animal archetypes and so forth from the time I was a tiny little child. I just didn't know that's what it was. So at some point when I was in college, I started to realize that I'd do a painting, and then maybe a year or two later, I'd realize, oh, that actually had meaning, and that really corresponded with things that were going on in my life. Well, I didn't know anything about energy work or any of this, right? But I just sort of noticed that, oh, the symbolism is there, and it's showing me things about my life in advance, right? So about, what is this, 2020, about 6 years ago, I started on this maybe heightened level of awakening, as many of us have. And a big part of that was realizing that I don't know what it was. I got prompted at some point. I decided I'm just going to hold my dad in my head and think about him and see what comes out on paper without even intending anything, right?
Had
So
he passed already, Ona?
I'm sorry.
Had your father passed?
No, he was alive. He still is. He's still very much alive. But I don't know what. But he's a very special person, right? And he's very, very connected. So it must have been. And I had just returned to my hometown, and was I had sort of landed at his house before finding a place, where I was going to be. And so I was thinking about him, and maybe he's grateful. I don't know what it was, but something about maybe his higher self prompted me. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to hold him in my head and see what comes out. And this bear goddess came out. This bear, powerful bear, and this beautiful goddess. And the more I looked at it, it was like, oh, I could see real parallels between the symbolism that came through in the drawing and certain aspects of who he was. And so I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then I just started just playing with it with other people that I knew. And every time, it was never anything that I would have pre-thought to draw, but it would be these symbolic images, right? That would come out, and I'd look at them, and it's like, and I'd see the meaning for that person. And so, long story short, because it's been a long journey since then, but I've worked with several healers. I've had a mentorship that was very, very, and I'm still working with this person, very helpful for me in understanding spiritual principles and how to work with that. I've worked with several people, and always learning. I love to learn. And so it's all kind of coming together. And I don't know, it sort of has, it just was revealed as this is the path. And I think with most of us, we have our path, and it's a journey, and it can be a warrior's journey sometimes. But here I am, and it feels right, and it's feeling good, and that's what it is. But the dragons and the spirit animals have been an integral part, and especially spirit animals in general. Just they seem to be just naturally. I tend to attune to them. I believe that everybody has their spiritual superpowers, every single person, and that happens to be one of mine. That I connect with the animals, and I think as we move on, each of us with our own healing journey, we uncover these gifts, or it's revealed to us, how what our superpowers are. So.
Right. No, I understand that. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many people I've spoken to that 6 years ago or so was a big turning point, me
Yes.
included.
Yes.
You just sort of wonder, Okay, what happened up there that they were getting everybody on a journey?
Right.
So when we hit now,
Yeah.
everybody was at their stride.
Absolutely. And it is so interesting how it's like there is a divine plan and we're all part of it. And yes, we have free will, but it also really intermeshes with kind of the unfolding of the greater collective and the universe and the Mother Earth herself. So it is fascinating to see how that goes. And I think there are soul tribes, like certain people who are interconnected, right, who sort of move onto these cycles in sync with each other, and we're meant to support each other and kind of assist maybe the next wave in coming forward, right? And I think that's we're starting to see another wave coming of awakenings. I think right now it's a very
Right,
powerful time.
right. I absolutely agree with all of that. So your YouTube presence is actually pretty big. But I know
It's
you've got more than just dragons on there. So what
yeah.
other kinds of things do you have on your YouTube channel?
Well, I think I already mentioned the spirit animals, so I have a series of spirit animal videos, and I'm kind of slowly adding more. Um, and I do a weekly energy update and reading, so that's sort of like the the weekly thing. And then sometimes it'll be just like spirit gives me something to put out there. So I'll do that. One of the things that I do to try to do occasionally, at least fairly semi regularly, is get out in the woods and get out in nature and bring people on nature hikes because nature has so much to teach us. And every time, you can go out and there's going to be a lesson every single time, whether it's a plant that comes forward or just seeing how the cycles of nature work. They're just innumerable. And I really look at nature as I think there's an important place that religion plays and an important place in all spiritual traditions. But nature I see as this ultimate template, right? It's the embodiment of spirit and the embodiment of spiritual principle. And so to me, that's going back to the source of all of the spiritual teachings is going to nature. So I do like to bring that into my channel. And I don't have a fancy camera right now. I just have my phone. So I just kind of hold it up and walk down the trail and just channel whatever comes through. That's happening, that nature's bringing forward, and kind of try to relay that message, that lesson that nature has at that time.
And I know that you have a real connection with Mother Earth. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I've always felt really connected with nature, and I think many of us have. I mean, that's not unique. And I don't think a connection with Earth is unique either. I believe that all of us have a deep connection with Earth. It's just a matter of becoming aware of it. But she is really for me. I just have this very strong sense that this is one of the reasons I'm here is to work in partnership and to learn to work with partnership and to also to relay kind of what I'm learning to the greater collective to assist as sort of like a I don't know, maybe part of the communication team. I don't know, because it's like all of us are so have been, our society trains us to be kind of divorced from ourselves, from the earth. And I don't see that there's a large sort of kind of belief going out there that is out there in a certain sector of the human community which feels connected with earth, and the belief is that we're destroying earth, and there's a kernel of truth to that, of course, that we as a species have engaged in some very unwise behavior and lost our connection and our just there's been a lot of disrespect and a lot of things that have been very damaging to the environment. But part of that whole dynamic is this belief that we're separate. And interestingly, like the first thing that often comes up when people start to realize what we're, what we're doing and the impact that we're having is to start to be horrified, of course, right? But then it kind of has this backlash against humanity itself and against, and so there becomes this sense that humanity is a bad thing and that we're just a cancer on the earth and that we're that it would be better off. I've heard so many times people saying, oh, the earth would be so much better off without us. And from what I've gathered just from connecting with Mother Earth and connecting with the animals and connecting with nature, nothing can be further from the truth. Mother Earth loves us like there's no tomorrow. We are really dear, dear children to her, and we really are one with her. And I think it really saddens her to think that her children are, blaming themselves, right? Yes, we need to take responsibility. Of course we do. And yes, we need to look and see what's been done and change, right? But part of that is a really important part of that is learning to love ourselves again and learning to see that we are loved and that this interconnection, that Mother Earth needs us as we need her, and that one of the superpowers of humans as a species, because every spirit animal, right, every animal has its own superpowers and its way that it contributes to the good of the whole. And one of our our whole purpose as a species is to this higher consciousness and bringing in this higher consciousness to the planet. We are assisting in bridging and bringing in the divine, sense of awareness into physical reality on this planet. And that is such a blessing and responsibility, as human beings. And that's true of each of us individually in our own ways, as well as humans as a species.
Right. I refer to that as bringing heaven to earth.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And like we're not the only species that does that. I think all species do that, but I think humans do that to an amazing degree with an amazing amount of just power that we are able to do that. And that's why we've been able to, when the power spins the wrong way, that it is so destructive, right? But we have the capacity to realize and to consciously work with what we're doing and with our own energy and energy in many different ways, right? The fuels and everything that we use, and to start turning that in ways that are not only not harmful but actually actively participating in the energies of earth and enhancing, right? We that's part of what we do. Just like when the beavers build dams and things, they alter the structure of the environment and it creates benefits for all of them, for everybody in that environment, right?
Right. So do you think that this time of isolation
Mm-hmm.
has helped some folks in their relationship with the earth?
I think it really has. I think it's sort of like this. Everybody has been compelled to come to silence and to come into stillness and to start just, you know, I think we've been on this roll, right? There's been a lot of momentum in terms of humanity creating all this technology. Well, technology is an important part of this, right? It's sort of a stepping stone, allowing us to reach certain levels of intercommunication with each other and so forth that we will eventually it'll be replaced, right, with other things. But it's been an important stepping stone. But in creating all this and getting to this point of high technology, we've gotten on this kind of treadmill kind of mentality, right? Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, and it's like it burns you up. Literally, it burns you up, and we see the earth heating and so forth, right? So it's been sort of like this: when you turn a ship around, you can't just immediately go from going that way to going this way. It kind of grinds to a halt. And then there's this sort of sense of stillness. It comes to a stop before it can actually turn around. And I really believe that that is what this whole pandemic, whatever it is, stay at home kind of thing. I really think that's what we're kind of seeing, is that there's that shifting of momentum. And it's interesting that it happened right when it did, right around the equinox going into 2020, which is this major year of like the divine feminine coming in and so forth. So yeah, I think it's all part of the divine plan, right? And these recent happenings too. If it's okay, I'd like to share something that came through in my journal. I was asking about preparing, and this was, I think, a couple days before all the stuff hit the fan in terms of what's happening in the United States with the protesting and the looting and so forth. But I was asking about what's the next step in, training my ego into service of the highest good, and really how do we prepare for what's coming? Because they've been telling me for quite some time that this summer, it's a huge shift, right? The huge stuff happening here. Okay, so the words that came through first were cataclysmic waterfall. And I looked up cataclysm, and it's like this, got a couple meanings, and one is like, I can't remember off the top of my head what the actual definition was, but it had something to do with like a kind of a disaster or whatever, and also natural disaster. But they explained it, right? Waterfall, meaning that really meant light, right? And I think the cataclysmic came through as like, okay, it can have very chaotic repercussions. And the reason is, let me just read what they said. They said, you are about to receive an influx of light from dimensions heretofore unknown to you. Be steady as you receive this. It's going to rock your world. There's a reason we've been advising you to prepare for something magical in June, and so forth. But what I'm interpreting this as is that we've come to a point as a collective and as a planet that we can start handling bigger amounts of light. And this is one of them. This is a big wave of light coming in. And the reason it looks so chaotic is that it's like for every action, there's an equal positive reaction, right? That it's flushing up all this dark stuff that was so entrenched before, and it's just moving stuff. And so what they're telling me is like, even though it looks like the world's falling apart, and even though there's all this chaos, what you're really seeing is the effects of huge amounts of light coming in. And in just the work that I've been doing recently with clients and in meditation and so forth, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing, things come forward that are really powerful energies, that like long-standing, kind of stuck, entrenched energies that are coming forward. At first it may seem scary, but it's really like, oh, well, they've been weakened enough that they have to show themselves. They've been weakened enough that, we can actually, and there's so much support coming in. Like the dragons are one instance. Like the dragons coming in the last couple of years, there've been a lot. And angels, just angelic activity. And the spirit animals are active. I'm finding people are searching more and more. They're finding me because they're looking like they see these animals, and they're sensing there's this real meaning and connection, and so forth. So the allies of light are just out there in mass, and we are so supported in this.
I love that, Ona. And I tend to work with the archangels. Well, then I've also been working with 500,000 earth angels and see what they're doing. And just over the last probably 5 weeks or so, it was, okay, now you need to learn about the elementals. Now you need to learn about the dragons. Now you need to learn about the unicorns. Now you need to learn about things like, okay. And they're calling it, for our purposes at EWN, energies of the new world.
Beautiful.
And so we're learning about all of those different energies and seeing them come forward. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying
Me
this.
too.
Seeing them come forward to support us and to be equal partners with us.
Yes.
So it's really, how do we come together, and how do we put that out into the world? And so I know that that's in connecting to people like you. And, how do we partner up here? So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. And that's so beautiful because humanity's gotten to the point where we're able to start working in partnership with these elementals and with the angels and stuff in a greater way, right? It's beautiful. And I love what you're saying about partnership because it's time, right? And this is another message I've been getting for the past probably 2 years. It keeps coming up. When Lightworkers get together, magic happens, and we can get together in so many ways. And it also, what you were just saying just triggered in me is like, oh, well, it's also that we're starting to be able to integrate, the angelic realm and the elementals and the earth energies and the animals. We're starting to be able to assist in bringing all those together so that it's a bigger, a bigger light army, right? Or more integrated or greater communication between all the different light elements, which is so exciting.
Right, right. Oh, I'm enjoying this so much.
Yeah.
Ona, if when people search for you,
Mhm.
they work with you as a client, what do they get with you? What services do you provide?
Yeah. Okay. So I have my own kind of unique modality, which is sort of like very eclectic, and I've called it soul visioning because it was just easier to put a name on it,
Right.
because otherwise I'm like, oh, it's this and this and this, right? So I call it soul visioning. And because I'm quite clairvoyant, I work with people in a way that um, just kind of brings to light and brings kind of helps to make visible energies that they're working with. Because when things are made visible, that's when you can, or brings into awareness, I think is a better way to say it. When you're aware of things, then you can work with them and deal with them. So it's like those dark energies, they don't want us to be aware of them. That's how they operate, right? Because when we're not aware of them, then we just are sort of, it's easy for them to manipulate us. But once we become aware, then we can start really working. So the way I work with people is I just there's a couple things that I do. One is an energy scan where I just scan all the chakras, and that's usually the first session when I work with a client. Is we'll usually do an energy scan and just see kind of sort of like a snapshot of the kind of what's happening in the aura, what's happening on that plane. And it can be very revealing, it can be very healing, just the awareness itself. And then I do um, like journey work. That's how probably the best way to describe it. So typically when I'll do a healing work with a person, it's very tends to be very interactive, and it's like bringing them, like if you've been on a medicine journey or something like that. I don't use the medicines, but when I work with people, it is pretty similar to that we go on journey, and it's it's sort of like a guided meditation but interactive. Often not everybody, not every single buddy is able to actually follow through, but most people are. And if they're not, then we still work with the energies, and it still works. It's just a lot of people are able to actually follow in the journey and have this really interactive experience. And what happens is um, we work with the archetypes, we work with their spirit animals, we work with their angels that come up, the plant totems. A lot of it's the natural world and their connection with that, and we come forward, and it's really, I don't have any preconceived notion of what's going to happen. Spirit just channels it through. I'm just sort of like this guide that kind of helps along. And so, and sometimes entities come up, like if they have, like, I heard of 2 people today that had entities that we worked with and helped to release those attachments. So, and often with the support and assistance of, their guides, their dragons, their angels, whatever it is, their higher self.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, no,
yeah.
it sounds fascinating, and
Yeah.
I love how individualized, obviously,
It's
how
it's
individualized it is.
yeah. It's so different one person to the next. And oh, and then I also work with the artwork. So often when I do a session, there'll be a drawing also. So I'll channel through it's like sort of like a power image, right? Or it's like your own oracle card from the session, and that is something that they can take with them out of the session. I will send via email a picture that they can download and print off if they want, and just, or and then separately from the sessions, if people are interested in the artwork itself, you know, I can do that for them. So whether it's, you know, seeing their angels and getting that down as an artwork, because the art actually channels through a lot of that energy that's there. So.
Wow, who wouldn't want that? I want that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
I love that. Ona, how do people contact you? How do they learn more about you? How do they contact you?
Let's see. A lot of people find me through my YouTube channel, Art of Awakening. I am also on Facebook. I believe it's Art of Awakening 11. Or you can check out my website, which is artofawakening.life. I couldn't get the .com, so I put life in big capital letters, artofawakening.life. So that's where you would find me. And I just, yeah, I love to hear from people, and would really appreciate, I especially appreciate when people come to my channel and they leave comments, because it's really fun to have that interaction with my audience and those people that, and everybody has so much to contribute. I think even the act of following somebody on social media, it's sort of like this act of, it's very intimate. I think we don't think of it as that way, but it really is, because every time you visit a channel or you like or whatever, you're actually offering some energy there. So I just want to give a lot of gratitude to my followers, because I really feel blessed.
That's beautiful. Ona, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for this time together today. And to everybody watching, we're so glad you're here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you are a light in the world.
Oh, well, thank you. And we're hoping to see a lot more of Ona here on Enlightened World Network. So to all of our friends, take good care of yourself, and God bless.